Alright, at this point I've ranked the best long guns, sidearms, relic hearts, armor sets. What else is there to rank in this game? All melee weapons. Number 1, the Krell Axe. Number 2 through 40, I don't know, figure it out. Alright, for real though, Remnant 2 now has its third and final DLC out, so we can make this video. I'm going to rank all 32 bosses from worst to best. Now I'm not counting aberrations or event holdouts like the Root Nexus, which is just killing mobs while it sits there and stares at you. No. This boss actually has to have an attack on its own for it to be on this list. I'll be ranking these bosses based on their moveset, difficulty, and just how fun they are to fight. And is the case with any tier list, if I ranked one of your favorite bosses low, just remember, I did it on purpose. Kicking off this list, we have a few candidates for worst boss in this game. Bloat King starts off with him just sitting on the roof of the arena doing absolutely nothing. Dude's just chilling thinking about that one cringe thing he said in an office meeting 5 years ago. Once you've dealt enough damage, he spawns one singular orb that has the slowest magic missiles you've ever seen in your life. Bloat King really isn't a threat if you're even half paying attention. The truly annoying part of the fight of this arena. If you dodge roll in the wrong way, you'll end up down below with dozens of these pests. I have never once died to these ads, even on Apocalypse. So it's just there to taunt you for falling. Also in D tier, the Abomination is appropriately named, because what even is this fight? This fight is just a big blob that rolls around the arena trying to flatten you. The nice thing is it has 3 giant weak points that you can create by blowing up tanks on the sides. But that just speeds up the fight even more. The fight really isn't even hard, and its only other move is to float around the air for a second, then slamming down creating one easy to avoid shockwave. Super easy fight, nothing much more to say on it. When this fight first came out from the second DLC, I had the worst bug happen to me. I used to be locked in place and couldn't move around the arena, which was more interesting than anything that's happened since to this fight. It's a giant pot that shoots out some elemental damage. You can shoot the crystal weak points or the pot itself, and that's really the entire fight. I mean, I don't know what you expect from a pot enemy. It's not like they're gonna fly around the air and grab you. Oh, Legion. Every time I'm running through the gauntlet, I let out an audible sigh whenever I see this is the yeasha boss we got. Bosses not having weak points is fine. We've actually got a few in this list that are pretty high up. But honestly, this fight isn't hard, but the madness is just there to be a hindrance. If you didn't know, madness is a unique debuff that blurs your screen and slows you down, and if you take a ton of madness buildup, you get a little bit of damage. The other thing this boss does is spawn weak mobs around that die instantly, so where's the threat? It's really in just not paying attention, getting overwhelmed by ads while the madness blurs your screen, causing you to get swarmed. I think when his floating head is red and pulsing, it should turn into a weak point, instead of just taking extra damage. But that's just me. This boss is the freest kill in Survivor and an absolute nuisance on Apocalypse. It's so weird how polarizing this fight can be. On the easier difficulties, this is such a simple fight. Kill the flying host and nuke the blue bug. But with its increased health pool and higher difficulties, it just takes forever, even with god builds. When you boil the fight down, it's just ad spam with Meridian bugs, then killing the flying ones to get the blue one to come down and end the fight. Oh, the spider boss. Every Souls game needs a spider boss. I don't know what to feel about this boss. It's not great. I'm never excited to see it. I will say that I think the spider move is decent. Roping off parts of the arena, making it smaller, like a spider trying to trap its prey, is a cool gimmick. But that's really the only thing I like about this fight. It's just a bit too one-dimensional, I guess, is the issue. Which is why it's just a bit higher on the D tier boss list. The Phantom of Astropath's respite is a bit of a pushover. In its first phase, it's just a DPS race, while he doesn't perform any really deadly attacks. After that, he just splits into copies of himself and you can take out for extra damage. But his ball phase in the center room has some great visuals and audio to enjoy. I really do like this energy wave attack that forces you to quickly get into the safe areas. It's a really cool attack, and I wish there was more of that to this fight, rather than just 2 boring phantom phases. Now I know the amount of hate this boss brings to the table, the acid status effect, the burning projectiles, and oh yeah, the instant kill move. Despite not being a super threatening boss, the instant kill move demands respect. She pulls her head back, tongue out, and is looking to impale you for an automatic end to the fight. Now it isn't super hard to dodge, but it's one of those things where if you dodge early or get staggered by one of the Fae add-ons, it'll get you. And it's one horrible way to end the gauntlet if that should happen to you. Bringing up the low end of C tier, we have the Mother Mind fight. Now some good points. I like the arena. She has some neat melee attacks. And even though this is usually a 3-phase fight, if your damage is high enough, you can skip multiple immunity phases. The 2 ads she spawns during immunity phases are just smaller versions of her, which really ties the whole mother aspect of her boss fight. Not bad, but also not great. Does anybody remember when this fight first came out and it would one-shot you in Apocalypse no matter how much damage reduction you had? Anyways, the Stone Warden has some cool looking melee attacks that are pretty easy to dodge. His second phase is actually called Deadly Chest, which is kind of a cool name. You have to find quick openings or get flattened. But survive his onslaught and we get back to repeating the melee attacks. Now this one might be a controversial ranking. I actually spoke to a bunch of my friends about where Shahala should rank, and here's the thing. I think the boss design is cool, however the arena is horrible. It's just a small platform. And even worse than that, this boss just isn't that fun. You kind of just walk around the hands and the orbs, no need to dodge, and the weak point is just kind of there. Cool looking boss, but taking down a bunch of slots mechanically. Man, what can we say about Ledusa? You know, I actually didn't mind this boss until I had to fight her 20 times in the gauntlet. The wall phase still takes way too long, which just kills any speedrun attempts. And its weak point going on and off is just kind of annoying. She does have some decent move variety between projectiles and ground slams, spinning blades against the wall and all that. It really just needs a lot of tuning to get higher on the list. I wouldn't consider this boss very hard on any difficulty, but I love this Matrix Sentinel vibe that this guy gives off. The laser attacks, the mini drones you can shoot down, and the changing arena also give this boss some style points. I actually had to stop my damage a bit just to see more of this fight in the video, so if you're playing on Survivor, you probably won't see much of his other phases. The second Yeasha world boss to make C tier is Corruptor. So the real boss is sitting in the back of the arena waiting for us to destroy his golem, just so we can come out, give it a little reboot, and then retreat like nothing happened. He does start trying to knock you off the platform during phase 2, requiring you to jump between floating platforms. But the amount of times I've died just from falling off the arena when I first got this game is legendary. I don't know, instead of an instant death mechanic that knocks you off the arena, I would have preferred something like a huge burst of damage or just something else. I have never seen more hate for a boss in this game than the cube fight. Now don't get me wrong, day one this boss probably took us 45 minutes to kill. But it's not so bad once you've had it a few attempts under your belt. I also thought it was funny that this looks like a Super Mario 64 cube boss of death. Now it's a Souls boss, but here we are. And I'm gonna be honest, no matter how hard you think this boss is, unless you've done it melee weapons only, it's not as bad as it could be. And trust me, I've done it. Now Gwendol isn't a bad boss. It's not too challenging, and the only thing you have to worry about is projectiles from her bombs, and her ads shooting you. It's a bit one-dimensional, and that's pretty much the whole fight. You can't get up to her platform, which makes the fight last a little bit longer, and some angles will force you to move around the arena. But at the end of the day, there's just more interesting bosses out there. Kicking off the halfway point, we've got Shrewd at B tier. Different types of ranged attacks, summon eggs that require you to kill them faster, they'll turn into ads, a melee phase, and enough spite to really make you question whose bow hits harder, Genesis or theirs. This is one of those fights that's more fun in co-op. Doing callouts for which eggs you've got or pulling aggro's so your teammates can get more damage in during the exploding arrows phase is also nice. Now I'm going to group both Talratha fights into one, and I think the average of both fights ends up here. Now you can fight normal Talratha or the metaphysical one when you're doing the campaign. I think the meta version is the superior fight. The Astral Arena, the better moveset, everything is just better. But the regular fight isn't bad either. Dodging his ground slam and roll attacks, the poison breath, and the extra zombie ads, overall really great fight and much better than the other base game Nerud world boss. Now this is how you do a boss with no weak point. I love the flowery water arena. Having to use the flowers to show which path to take is a really cool and unique way than just having a normal path. The boss itself going in and out of the water to get closer to you for melee attacks is neat. And using the save move to trigger phase 2 tentacles is also nice. This boss is also just the best case to show off Burden of the Gambler Ring. A new boss from the Dark Horizon DLC takes the spot in B tier as well. Instead of being a two-phase fight, it's a two-boss fight. If your DPS is on the slower side, you'll get punished by fighting both of these two at the same time. That and the small platform you can fall off reminds me of the bug bridge fight in Remnant from the Ashes. I always find myself checking to see if I can roll or just have to eat the attack on this arena. Because one time I had my buddy kill me with Meridian, and then immediately fall off the map 2 seconds later. One of the few bosses absent from the gauntlet, the Huntress is truly a unique boss. She stalks you like her prey when you first enter her hunting grounds, and she will do a mini skirmish, and after about half health she will retreat and you'll have to go find her. At this point the Huntress becomes the hunted, find her resting in her nest and get the drop on her. Since the entire losomn area is her arena, it really makes this encounter memorable. Any boss that has a giant weak point taking up 50% of their body is a win in my book. And in campaign mode, you don't even have to fight this guy. Kill the deer and keep moving through the campaign, what's not to like? I haven't really talked too much about boss rewards because I'm not really using that as a metric for boss rankings, but Merciless and Ravager's Mark are top tier rewards from this single fight. I like the voice acting, the decision making, and the add spawn indestructible arena, it all just works. The first of the Root Earth bosses to make the list is Cancer. Now I love all three of these endgame Root bosses. They really capture the Souls-like aspect of with their movesets. The tree branches blocking your line of sight, the shockwaves that'll one-tap you on Apocalypse, heck, even the boss's appearance looks sweet. Dude hollowed out a layer of his own, you just gotta respect it. This guy might have one of the coolest opening cinematics in this game. Just kills 3 Fae and impales one of them right in front of you. His Death Rush attack is much like the Magister's, that it's an instant kill. Thankfully it's on a decently long cooldown and he always starts the fight with it. After he's done trying to stab you to death, he leaps to the balcony and starts throwing knives and summoning Fae to end you. The fight is just non-stop action and I'm here for it. Alright, kicking off A tier we have the Sunken Witch fight. This is actually one of my favorite new bosses when the Awakened King DLC first came out. All of the moves are super telegraphed, which means when you fail and get hit, it's usually on you. Dragging her to different pathways in the arena helps open up some more, relieving some of the claustrophobia when you first enter the arena. The ads phase isn't anything special, but I feel like that's the case with most of these bosses. But kill them fast or she's going to jump down and overwhelm you. Now this is how you end a DLC. I absolutely love this boss fight on every level. The sounds, the space age environment, the moveset. This feels like a straight up Souls boss that FromSoft cooked up. Even though it's kind of reusing the Astropass laser move, I still found the rest of the moveset unique. The Rings of Death, the ground slide moves, the final phase when he gets low enough health. Everything about this fight is a win for me. Good level of challenging and interesting. Now the Nightweaver isn't really a difficult boss, but gets a high A ranking because of two things. Style points, and being one of the only actual two-phase fights in the entire game. Now I don't think Remnant needed more two-phase fights, overdoing is what lost some points with Lies of P. But beyond that, the look of fighting a ghost demon that wants to eat our soul is something out of a horror game. And the jump scare you get after beating her was great the first time I fought this boss. Phase 2 having an arena change and a game of hide and seek for the ad phase is a smart move as well. Venom is a boss that's always going to make you sit up in your chair and lock in. During my Apocalypse runs, this was always the guy we were mentally preparing for because he is never easy. And I swear, this guy knows what build I'm coming in with because every time I'm running Ritualist, he's got elemental resist, I swear. This is one of those fights that's so difficult that it's actually fun when you actually wipe this boss. I really like the Fae fights for a number of reasons. The whole mirrored universe thing is cool, the ads being little orb projectile turrets, and even him mocking us during the whole fight. And let's not forget the sword move. The sword move isn't a very dangerous one once you know where to stand, but this move had me looking like Willem Dafoe in the Eternity's Gate the first time I saw it. Right down to the very end of this fight and phase changes and new moves. They pulled out all the stops for this fight. Now, I think all the Fey royalty are top-tier bosses from a design standpoint. The Red Prince is unique in the fact that you don't actually have to fight him. Hand him the 3 coins that you can farm from his dungeon and he'll tell you to fuck off. Voice acting incredible, boss appearance incredible, and who doesn't like a whirlwind of fire closing off the arena? This is truly a memorable fight. I remember the first 2 weeks of this game coming out, everyone's complaining about the glitch effects from this boss being hard to see. But honestly, once people have seen him 2 or 3 times, the complaints kind of slow down. But honestly, the glitch effect really sold me on this fight. The chaotic nature of Annihilation going back and forth between flying version and the standing one is great. A very soulsy boss with attack patterns as well. I think this is the perfect last boss for the game, and one that soon won't be forgotten. And at the tip top of this tier list is the One True King. Jameson Price is a very well-known voice actor, and he did the One True King justice. I love that in the base game you can do a murder mystery dungeon as an introduction to this character before the first DLC even came out. So by the time you reach him at the end of the DLC, you're like, hey, I know that guy. The fight itself is a spectacle. Teleportation, a dozen drain coming in to aid him during the fight. And oh yeah, his hammer is chained together with Traitorous Fae. Just an all-around amazing fight that I'm always happy to run into.